Good morning. My name is Megan Edwards of Focus Communications, and today we're getting an update from Rackla Metals, who trades on the TSX.V under the symbol RAK. Joining me is Rackla CEO and Director, Simon Ridgway. Simon, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Well, thank you for the invite again, Megan.
Now, before we jump into today's news, for those who are new to the Rackla story, could you introduce us to the company and your projects along the Tombstone Gold Belt?
Yeah, Rackla trades on the TSX symbol RAK. And we've been active in this Tombstone Gold Belt for the last year and a half, following Snowline's amazing discovery in the belt on the eastern side. I got back a long way in the Yukon. I lived in the Yukon back in the early 90s to mid 90s and spent a lot of time working in those days in the belt on the western side. And when I saw Snowline's discovery, I decided to jump into the play. And there was a lot of open ground along the border between the Yukon Northwest Territories. So we acquired a bunch of ground from some of the joint ventured, the Astro, the HIT, and the SER, with joint ventures with other companies that weren't active on the ground. And then some to the south of that, we staked some ground ourselves on the RAK and the Main and the Joss. We didn't get a lot of work done on the southern block because we had such a good time prospecting on the Astro, the HIT, and the SER that we focused on those areas. Mm-hmm. And we found some very interesting targets. As we said in the spring, the goal here this summer was to get lots of boots on the ground, hike these hills, prospect these intrusive bodies that have really not been looked at before for gold, follow up all the stream geochem that was done by previous operators and that was not followed up. People just didn't walk inside these boring gray intrusive rocks. It's steep country, hard hiking, and so we got lots of young geos and lots of boots on the ground, and they followed up the geochemistry and identified some very interesting targets, some of which we got to drill this year, some of we didn't. Some will have to get there next year. It was the season is short. Even though we had a lot of people on the ground, we completed about 3,000 meters of drilling, just over that, and we hit several of the targets on the Astro and on the HIT. We did not get to the SER. We didn't get the drill to the SER. We did lots of work on it and identified some very interesting targets on that intrusive body also, but we didn't get to work. So, as you saw from the news release we put out this morning, we showed some of the core from the drilling we did on the HIT. This is the HIT intrusive now, and as you see, it's got several areas we mapped in, a lot of sheeted veins outcropping in the intrusive. Following up on other people's geochemistry and some of our own work also. And we put 5 holes into the HIT. If you could just take a look at the sheeted outcrop, go to the next slide, we'll see that. So this is a picture of what we drilled at depth. This is oxidized outcrop of intrusive. You see how it's kind of shattered by these veins. It's kind of slabs of intrusive, but between those slabs were sulfides. Sampling on this outcrop returned, 0.68 gold over about 2 meters. So, we drilled under this area on hole 3 and hole 4 on the HIT. Cut some very interesting looking core. I don't know it's going to run. It's not like Snowline. We don't have visible gold in the quartz veins, but we do have, pyrrhotite, bismuthite, and arsenopyrite, which are the sulfides that go with these gold deposits. So we're pretty optimistic we'll have some interesting results, but we're a few months away from that. So if you take a close look at the core that we did cut in this, so here's a cross section. So this is really showing the density of the veins per meter in the 2 holes. Hole 3 was the first one we put in, and that's the one that cut right under that outcrop I just showed you in the previous picture. And hole 4, we turned it around, and as we had such good success at the top of the hole, we turned around and went the opposite direction with hole 4. And both of those drill holes had significant veining all the way down to the bottom of the hole. So we're pretty optimistic we'll see some interesting results from this. As always, no guarantees, no visible gold in the core, so we have to wait for the assay results, which will probably be 4 to 6 weeks away.
And Simon, could you talk about the length of hole 3 and 4?
Yeah, so the hole 3 was about 290 meters. Actually, a bit less than that, 230, I think. And then with hole 4 went the opposite direction. So with this scissor hole, we covered about 300 meters in width across this mineralized zone. And we went about 180 meters deep, vertically. So we covered quite an area, and the sheeted veining was consistent throughout that area. So let's see what comes from it.
So, and just looking at the map, was it a continuous veining from top to bottom?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. There was continuous veining from top to bottom. There were more intense areas, like the dark red, as we showed. The veining in areas, we got up to like 50 odd veins per meter. So the significant number of veins, but on average, it probably averaged 12 to 15 veins per meter throughout the whole hole. I think at the very bottom of hole 3, it was getting a little leaner, and that's why we stopped the hole at that point. But that doesn't mean it wouldn't come back in again. And
can you talk a little bit about the core?
Well, if you take a look at this, figure 5, you can see here the inset there, where you see it's pretty hard to see when you look at the core in general, but with that close up, you can see the number of veins we're getting. These are quartz sulfide sericite veins, quartz carbonate as well, which is kind of indicative of what Snowline's got. They are seeing visible gold in their core and not the sulfides that we're getting. But otherwise, it's a very similar system. We're seeing gold, we're seeing bismuth, we're seeing arsenopyrite in those narrow veins. So yeah, it looks good. It looks good.
And Simon, to cap things off, could you briefly summarize the 2023 exploration season for Rackla and what investors can expect from the company in 2024?
Well, as we promised in the spring, we were going to get into these intrusive areas, get lots of boots on the ground, get lots of geos following up the geochemistry, identify targets from that prospecting, and then drill them. When we accomplished that, we identified a lot more areas than we've drilled so far. So there's a lot more to do next year. But what we can expect for the next 3 months is just a steady flow of news. So we'll get all the results of all the drilling, compile it all, and release that information, and then plan a program for next year. So this is a new hunting ground. We're looking for big gold systems here, and hopefully what we've done this summer will be indicating a much bigger program for next year.
My fingers are crossed for you. Once again, we want to thank you for your time today, Simon, and we look forward to having you back on for the next Rackla update.
Okay, thank you, Megan. Thanks for the invite.